All right, everybody, I hope you're doing really well. I am going to run the table here very quickly. As you can see, we've got a bit of already launching into the Munger case study because we're looking at 3 things we need to do. This is from our project slides. Please click on it as it's on the calendar, and it will allow you more detail. I'm going to run this quickly through the slides because you've got it. Basically, the first thing we want to do is look at a portrait. Who is this guy, Axel? I always recommend this with any client that you're going to serve in any way. And I say client in quote marks. Could be a customer, could be a fellow employee, could be your boss. But we want to look at their personality, their style of communication, and their bias. The second thing we want to look at is the problem, and what is the problem from their perception as best you can manage. And third, make an educated plan as to how you might best communicate and fulfill solving that problem. So with Axel, we know that he's an outdoor expert. We know that he is the owner and entrepreneur and has summited Mount Everest twice. He cares about the company's success. He's ambitious, possibly, or we could infer that. So we have to put some things in quote marks. We don't want to attribute motivations and intent when we don't know for sure, but we could put little question marks at least next to some of that. He does express concern about his employees' lack of procedure or lack of knowledge or conveying that knowledge. Now, that'll be interesting because those are 3 different things, and you'll parse that as you work the case study. But at least maybe one of those, if not a combination. He assumes also that the employees are as equally invested as he is. Now, I put a question mark on this because this came out of a previous discussion with another class. Is it true? Is it not? I'm going to let you parse that. That's the fun of the case study, is that you can start to interpret and show me your mind as to how you're interpreting what you're seeing using the comments feature as you hand in your final draft. It's just another little extra you can do. You don't have to. Sometimes your work itself shows your opinion and what you're seeing. I'm good with that too, but sometimes the comment pane can be used to kind of single out where you're seeing, if you will, some attitude. In this case, how you're seeing the employee's position with Axel. Know that in everything you do for this class, you can be brief, as long as you're clear and as long as the content is full enough that I get the gist. All right, the other things, he is aware that he needs help. He's reaching out. Is it a bit late? I don't know. But is he caring for the store's product quality? Is he caring for the safety of his customers? Seems implied. It seems legit that he's concerned about his employees conveying the truth. He's also looking at, obviously, his customers. Sorry, I had a misstatement there. The safety of his customers, not the safety of his employees. Hopefully he's caring about his employees. Could he be deemed as directive or accusatory? Absolutely. There's a couple places in here where he seems a little bit hot, a little aggressive, as we might say. Is he a perfectionist? Is he assuming that he's selling to people who are not high-level athletes? Do we know that for sure? That's an interesting thing. So there's some things we could confirm and look at. The problem is, he states it is a lack of the employees properly informing customers, but consider what else might be in play and think about user errors. I mean, could it just have been a wild streak where we've got a bunch of people not knowing how to use this? That's nobody's fault. Do we know? So these are things to possibly bring up in emails with him. Is his style of communication itself possibly contributing to the problem? Is his marketing communication matching customers' experiences well enough? So there could be, if you will, ripple effects of different problems that are somewhat connected, but not necessarily. And so you parsing that could be a wonderful opportunity here. The plan, we can't be accusatory, certainly not with Axel. We've got to come across as a person that contracted, right? He got us in. He didn't have to get you in. You are still contracted. So let's not be rude. Let's not be pedantic. Let's not say, oh, dear Axel, you obviously have a horrible tone. You know, no, it's not what we're going to do. We're going to compliment as best we can. We are going to state what action is being taken. We're going to give cues for how we can be improved. And we're going to use suggestive language. Language I call plausibility. Perhaps you might consider. I suggest. I made this suggestion because. Again, all in the land of possibility, suggestion, not demand. Now, there are points that are unequivocal when there's a point when something's wrongly stated and it's just not truthful, or there's a gap that needs to be clarified. For example, the refund policy. That's just matter of fact. That's not suggestion. That's just simple crystal asking. But we don't want to come across with an imperative voice like you should, you need to, you did not. All that accusatory tone in the emails that accompany task 1 and 2 to addressed to Axel. Need to avoid that. Okay, let's get in. So we got who he is. We've got the issue. We've got a gazillion places it's gone wrong. It's gone wrong on Twitter. It's gone wrong with a letter that we've received. It's gone wrong in a memo. Let's look at the memo. And I want to coach this. We'll look at some other points. I'm going to go through the first paragraph a little slower, and you can speed up at points, but I think at this point you're going to see that I'm going to pace it fairly quickly. So I think at this point you can kind of just go regular speed if you are on your YouTube. Here we go. As you know, we've been selling a lot. Can we assume that they know, first of all, right? Maybe, maybe not. But at this point, I would bring up the question at least with Axel, if not just cut it and then say, I cut that because I cannot assume that. The other thing that's not happened here is what we call a gap. When we do analysis, we often want to look at what needs to repeat, what needs to be put in sort of an oppositional framework, what gaps are also, just apparent. And what a gap is here is 9 out of 10 times, folks, it's great to start out with thanks. We need to start the world with thanks, right? And if we look at smart cultures like the Iroquois Confederacy, the Haudenosaunee, they start every meeting out with the Thanksgiving edict, a prayer or a posture, if you will, as they read this Thanksgiving address. And that's technically the term for an address. And they thank everything around them, the waters, the food they have, the animal creatures, mammals and creatures of the sky and the earth, and wonderful, the sun. And it's amazing because by the time you get at the end of that thing and everybody takes a pause and you kind of assent, that sets tone, right? That sets tone for business, so to speak. We're all relative to what we've been given and what we've been allowed to participate in. What a fantastic way to start. So why don't we start with big picture? Thank you, right? And thank you, we've been selling a lot. What's the problem with a lot? Well, we could be a heck of a lot more specific. So especially if we can do comparative work. So we might say sales have been up 15% over last quarter. Cool. Does it sound a little corporate? Could be. It's a small mom and pop shop. We'll look at alternatives, but somehow saying thanks, probably for a number, is good, right? We've been selling quite a few more than last month. Even that could kind of work. But it's always good to empower your employees with a sense of positive stats if you can show anything in positive stats and numbers, because that's good circulation, right? They will quote unquote gossip with their friends and family and others, and kind of, if you'll pat each other on the back, or at least feel the moment, right? So thank them for that. And then do shift. The shift is fine. Unfortunately, we've got customer complaints. We've got a leaking fabric, possibly, right? But that's what they're saying. And he says, I don't think the fabric is defective. What's the problem with I don't think? It's subjective. He does back it up in the next sentence, but I think it's, again, a slippery foot on a banana here to kind of go down on it. So in other words, you should know. You're the boss. You're the CEO. So what you want to state is, instead, drop this phrase or strengthen the next and kind of combine it. So we might say, most likely the fabric is not defective because, right, it is highly tested and undergoes strenuous quality checks. We might even be more specific here. I thought it was, and we are checking again, right? You could add that if you wanted to. I want to make this very, very, very bullet clear. And that is, folks, it could be a product issue, could be a user issue, could be an employee issue, meaning the employees are not educating the customers well enough. Could it be a combination of those? I don't know. Could be too, right? So what's interesting here is how you play it and how you ferret that out in emails with Axel. Shows me your rhetoric, your savvy, if you will, on this one. Okay, you're not effectively educating the customers about what they can or cannot expect from HTO ProTech. Whoa, 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 right? The you voice, it's always dangerous, okay, to go there. It's dangerous really two ways we can pitch off in an organization. We can assume by going first person plural and say, we're not educating the employers, and underneath that we is a real threat to the employee, because they're like, yeah, really what you're saying is if I don't get my stuff together, I get fired, and you get to stay here because you're boss. So the we can be a little bit manipulative, right? Who's the we? Be careful with first person plural. It could still work here if it was framed properly. All that said, you second person is often deadly in this type of tone when we're dealing with complaint. Okay, Couple other things, let's run them through quickly. H2O Protec is not a spacesuit. What do you think about the tonality there? I'm just going to leave it there. Under exertion, humans produce a surprising amount of sweat. Didn't know that. We'll just leave it there. Wow, we've got a lot of questions of ways to handle customer complaints. Could we possibly put them in a bullet list? Maybe. Bottom line, go either way on this one, but tonality again could be suspect. Is it a bit too aggressive or is it just fine? It's matter of fact. Go either way, just bringing it up because you may or may not want to make the change. And if you do, maybe you want to throw in a comment as well to say that's why you cut it. So how would I do this? I would copy and paste this whole doc as is, and I might use track changes to kind of take things out and add things in. So you're kind of showing, if you will, the amalgamation, the change from what it was to what is. Or you're welcome just to write a whole new clean copy. And then, you know, maybe just comment on the former, if you will, here on these couple comments. Whatever you feel looks best as you convey to me what the changes. I can work with either one. Task 2, we've got a letter from Elise. She is not happy. What happened? She took this rain jacket. Brooke told me it was waterproof. So we've got an issue. We don't really know if this thing is waterproof, water resistant. We're going to find out a little bit more. That's really key because sometimes the facts here are also a little bit in the shade, a little bit in confusion. Last weekend, I accompanied my son's Boy Scout troop on an overnight camping trip. As you probably know, it rained most of the weekend when the dark clouds began to roll in. I didn't worry much. I thought I had a rain waterproof. I was wrong. Period. Short sentence, clipped. Wow. Got a tonality. Okay. The jacket just didn't keep me very warm and dry while the scouts completed the compass skill. I spent the entire weekend damp and cold. My son's inexpensive PVC poncho kept him drier than my expensive, quote, waterproof jacket. Now we got it in quote marks, right? I feel that Brooke misrepresented, As a store advertising itself, quote, as a place where experts gear up, I expect a much higher quality product. I would like a full refund. The most important thing you can do, and I'm wagging my fingers, but I'm saying it's always a good idea on the side of these particular paragraphs to write quickly to yourself, what do they want? So what does she want? Oh, I think we've got a lot here. We've got refund, but don't miss the implications in this paragraph. And I'm going to just hint at that by saying there's a lot of emotional freight here. Do we want to address that in some way, right? Okay, when do we refer to the refund if we do have a refund? We have no policy right now. We have no idea. So we're going to have to email. We're going to have to email Axel to be able to find out whether or not there is a refund and whether or not there's an exchange. And so we can't find that out right away unless we've got it confirmed from him. So we're going to send an email out to him. And we're going to say, hey, what's your refund policy? And then for the rest of the project, you're going to assume what the refund policy is. But right now we don't have one, and you get to create it. And I'd love to see the way you go at it. I've had all kinds of cool creative points on this. It's an exchange. It's only exchange. It's for cash. It's unequivocal. It's, bring it in. We'll look at it and we'll see what we can do. Right? All kinds of ways to do it. I'd love to hear your logics on that. All right. Be sensitive. Elise has obviously not had a good experience. Okay. In terms of dating, we often do this. It is okay to do this. It is official to do this. It's not a bad idea to do this. You could, even though in this case, kind of say, hey, wow, there's a lot of heat here. I might not even start out this formal. I'm open to that. But know that it is policy. It is the status quo to kind of say, refer to your letter. Okay. Got a problem right away. I did not misrepresent. Wow. Obviously, if you need to tackle that one right there. It's the best breathable, waterproof rain gear. Wow. We got to go to the product and brag about it or even put it out in front of her. I think we can flex that in a more subtle way. I suspect you did not use the jacket properly. Right? Could be, but the language matters and how we represent it. Okay. Biggest thing here, obviously, again, we've got a big, siren whirling here. Woo, woo. We've got problems with tonality big time. We're blaming, and that's not where we need to be. So again, when we talk about how to have difficult conversations, we've got to build empathy, folks. We've got to be alongside each other. It's a collaborative learning opportunity, not a problem. We're going to work through this, and we want retention if we can get it, right? We want customer loyalty, client loyalty. All right. That's pretty obvious. One thing that may not be obvious is what I call a pivot statement. A pivot purpose statement in a letter and a memo is very key. So if I can rewind for a second, in your memo, the very last sentence of your first paragraph should be an explanatory phrase or a launch into the rest of the memo that tells people, here's why I'm writing this. And you can literally say, the purpose of this memo is blank, okay? Here again, you might want to come out flat out and say, with what follows, let me explain possibilities of ways that, you know, we might offer the refund, we might offer empathy, and then we might pivot right to, hey, just in case, to save you time, not to have to bring in all the gear, let me explain the possibilities of a way the jacket might still work and that you might be able to check it. Okay. One of the dangers of ever doing an explanatory return to letter to someone filing a complaint like this is that you're going to deluge them with information. Their emotions are already up here, right? They're coming up, and they're not necessarily wanting to learn. They're not wanting to be educated. They're wanting to be heard. And so we have to think about that. And we may want to use a link to more procedures as to how to kind of do a self-check, if you will. We may want to think about discounts. We may want to think about, you know, apologizing as we can, again, for the perception and the bad feeling, not necessarily for the product. I would hope I'm going to, well, just flat out say, wow, really, do we absolutely know the product is at fault here, right? Can we apologize possibly for the customer service? Maybe, yeah, could be here in play. We don't know. I don't know, you know, sometimes you can just cover and say, well, geez, if I said anything wrong, I'm sorry. So that one way out, okay? The other thing I'm just going to say, and we're going to go out here with this, is that should Brooke be writing this piece? I mean, it was addressed, originally the letter's addressed to Axel. So there's two ways to look at this. I don't know if Axel's got all the time in the day for this. It is a small company. Maybe he does. Maybe you're going to say he should. I'm not so sure with an oppositional issue when you have Elise up against Brooke that you want Brooke necessarily to be the one to address Elise back. Would love to hear the give and go. I've had students over the years kind of argue both ways. Both can be legitimate, so we're very clear. I just want to bring that up as a rhetorical moment. Some other things you need to look at, you know, tonality is pretty clear that this is a setup for Munger. First, you need to realize, like, again and again, you're going to see these bell ringers of, wow, geez, it's a little bit, you know, a little much in tonality, again, using the U. PVCs, do we need to kind of compare and contrast a Gore-Tex jacket to a PVC poncho? Remember cotton kills. I've had people go back and forth on this. I don't necessarily think it's in your face, but some people might. Do we want to use bullets in here? Maybe, maybe not. Do we want a customer to try to see if a jacket works or doesn't work by wearing it and standing in a shower or in and among their lawn sprinklers? Just saying. All right, guys, have a good one. Let me see if I can get out of this. And if you have questions, please let me know.